Is Canada going to be dragged into Europe with boots on the ground? Oh boy. In this report, we're going to take a look at the rapidly deteriorating situation in Europe, Poland specifically. David Eby is the second worst rated premier in Canada based on new data, a steep decline since the election. Mark Carney is about to release the projects of national interest. If you are wanting Canada to be an energy superpower, it's not going to include pipelines. The real question becomes why. Alberta separation might be at risk because Mark Carney, he has some tricks up his sleeve. The new Prime Minister of Trinidad announced Stand Your Ground law, competing with Florida's Castle law. Just wait till you see this announcement. Let's just say Scarface. Let's get into this report. We got some breaking news from Poland.
This morning, Poland on high alert after drones from a wave of Russian attacks in neighboring Ukraine reportedly crossed the border. Polish and NATO air defenses were scrambled to shoot down the drones. People in 3 regions of Poland near the Ukraine border being urged to stay home. The Polish government calling the incident an act of aggression that posed a real threat to the safety of our citizens, adding that its forces remain fully prepared for immediate response. It comes less than a week after Russian President Vladimir Putin traveled to China, showing unity with leaders of China and North Korea. Since that meeting, Russia has staged its largest aerial attack on Ukraine since the war began. U.S. Senator Dick Durbin responding overnight, saying Vladimir Putin is testing our resolve to protect Poland and the Baltic nations.
Here's a photo of one of the 19 drones that they shot down. This is what it looks like. What's Alex Jones saying about the whole thing? Former Polish Duda warned 1 week ago that Zelensky and NATO were preparing a staged false flag attack on Poland to launch war with Russia. We don't know if this is true, but this is what he's saying. But it's interesting to see what Europe is saying in response. While this is happening in Poland, hospitals across France have been told to prepare for war next year in a leaked memo. They're expecting them to prepare for wounded soldiers in the range of 10 to 50,000. The plan is in place.
Hospitals across France have reportedly been told to prepare for a potential armed conflict by next year, with the government urging health providers to be ready. According to French media, in a leaked letter sent to health agencies across the country, the government says hospitals should be prepared for a major military engagement as soon as March 2026. It said that between 10,000 and 50,000 men could be expected in French hospitals over a 6-month period, which could include foreign soldiers who are coordinated with NATO and the EU. They are planning medical transit centres to make use of regional facilities and to distribute patients arriving from potential front lines. According to the reports, doctors are also being warned to prepare for shortages. The French health minister hasn't denied the letter and stressed it was a precautionary measure, but that aggression from some actors means the country needs to prepare for the worst. It comes months after the government announced a survival manual, which is set to be sent to every household in the country. The 20-page booklet is said to include details of what to do in a variety of emergencies, including nuclear blasts and natural disasters, and contains a survival kit packing list, which includes water, tinned food, paracetamol and a torch.
Does this look like a de-escalation of the situation? The one thing that was the most concerning out of this report was that they're preparing for foreign, not French, but foreign people that are on the front line. Who could the foreign people be? There's only 2 countries that I could think of that promise boots on the ground: UK and Canada. Remember Mark Carney's announcement? This is not made up stuff.
On the land, in the air, and the sea, and I would not exclude the presence of troops. Yeah.
He will not exclude the presence of troops. You see how rapid the situation is unfolding. Here's what Donald Trump said. What's with Russia violating Poland's airspace with drones? Here we go. This is the man that's in charge of NATO, Mark Rutte, which is the Secretary General of NATO. Let's hear what he has to say.
Last night, numerous drones from Russia violated Polish airspace. Our air defences were activated and successfully ensured the defence of NATO territory, as they are designed to do. Several allies were involved alongside Poland. This included Polish F-16s, Dutch F-35s, Italian AWACS, NATO multi-role tanker transport and German Patriots. I commend the pilots and all who contributed to this quick and skillful response. The North Atlantic Council met this morning and discussed the situation in light of Poland's request for consultations under Article 4 of the Washington Treaty. Allies expressed solidarity with Poland and denounced Russia's reckless behavior. A full assessment of the incident is ongoing. What is clear is that the violation last night is not an isolated incident. The Supreme Allied Commander will continue to actively manage our deterrence and defense posture along the entire eastern flank. Allies are resolved to defend every inch of Allied territory. We will closely monitor the situation along our eastern flank, our air defences continually at the ready. This only reinforces the importance of NATO and the path to which allies agreed at our summit in The Hague earlier this year. We need to invest more in our defence, ramp up defence production, so we have what we need to deter and defend. And we need to continue to support Ukraine, whose security is interlinked with our own. And let me conclude by saying that Russia is waging a dangerous war of aggression against Ukraine that continually targets civilians and civilian infrastructure. Allies are determined to step up their support for Ukraine in the face of Russia's escalating campaign.
This is not good, Canada. We don't want to be dragged into this situation. Now let's hear from the Deputy Prime Minister of Poland.
I am aware that Russia claims there is no evidence these were Russian drones, even suggesting a Ukrainian provocation. This was anticipated. Lies and denials are default Soviet responses. The Kremlin is again mocking President Trump's peace efforts. Third, we are countering disinformation. I call on everyone to rely on governmental sources and on information from verified media outlets. Anyone claiming that this was a Ukrainian provocation is spreading Russian propaganda. Poland, the EU and NATO will not be intimidated, and we will continue to stand by the brave people of Ukraine. It's time for the leadership of Russia to understand that the attempt to rebuild Europe's lost empire is doomed to fail.
What's your thought on the Deputy Prime Minister of Poland, his response to the information that's starting to circulate the internet? What I find interesting about his post is that he turned off the comment section so people can't even speak. It's that I don't like. I didn't realize how small these drones were. Look, the sky is about 2 times the size of this thing. And the latest on the story is Donald Trump is going to be calling Polish president to discuss this drone thing. We're going to get an update. And who else is going to be on the call is Macron, Steimer, Meloni, Root, the guy that we just saw, and Zelensky. I'm hoping to provide all of you an update. Our next top story is David Eby's popularity has straight up nosedive. He's down 12 points since March. Let's take a look at this news release.
It's a popularity number going one way, down.
When it starts to go downward, you can get those bumps back up, but it tends to keep going.
The Angus Reid Institute showing 41% of British Columbians approve of BC Premier David Eby's performance, down 5 points since June and 12 points since March, a new low for Eby since he took office 3 years ago.
There's a lot to choose from in terms of something that you might be upset with. And I think that's where you get a consistent drop.
Those choices include healthcare, public safety, and most acutely the economy. The provincial deficit scheduled to be updated Monday could hit a new high. On top of that, the BCGEU strike continues, meaning a traditional ally for the government is now a foe.
Just so people are aware, BC has had 4 credit downgrades in the last 4 years, and we're going to get another credit downgrade by Moody's they just announced for next year. We're running a $10.9 billion deficit. We're going to look at some more information that I'm going to provide you, but BC is straight up going down. That's why we're having rolling blackouts in our hospitals. There's not much to look forward to in British Columbia these days. And BC residents are waking up to the fact that they were hoping that David Eby would be able to do something. He's doing absolutely nothing.
You can call a government pro-labor, whatever you want. That doesn't change the facts. That they haven't come to the table. They're not addressing the needs of working people in this province.
In the past few days, numerous NDP supporters have expressed concern over Eby's comments to cancel or reform the Temporary Foreign Workers Program, blaming them for an increase in shelter and food bank use. Katrina Chen, the co-chair of Eby's leadership campaign and a former minister, writing on Facebook, "It happens all the time. Government underfunds services, then points fingers at immigrants through flawed policies government created. This fuels bias and discrimination. What we need is reform. Immigrants like me aren't government scapegoats. It's untrue that we fill up shelters and food banks."
What do you think about Katrina Chan's post?
But another former minister, Ginny Sims, says the Premier's comments are kicking off an important discussion.
I do not believe that the Premier was blaming the temporary foreign workers. He was saying it's time for the abuse to stop.
While Eby continues to see his popularity drop, he's not alone. BC Conservative leader John Rustad has a favorability of 28%.
Yeah, see, BC doesn't have many choices. John Rustad has gone down in popularity because his takes, he's all over the place. The only party that's starting to make sense is the BC One Party, the brand new party. They're truly a conservative-led party. Things are getting so bad in British Columbia. Last year, 70,000 people left the province. 2/3 were under the age of 40. The entire province is getting gutted of our professionals, our best of the best. They're leaving because there's zero opportunity. There's way too much red tape and taxes in British Columbia. We are literally getting run into the ground.
For years now, and when British Columbians answer, they have a lot to say.
What we heard largely repeatedly was that people that are leaving by necessity, not by choice. And I think we saw that through the stories that we heard from everyone around the province, that people weren't sending us just short snippets, they were sending us entire essays.
The BC Business Council's wrapping up a campaign riffing off the Alberta government's recruitment strategy. Finding more and more British Columbians are packing up and leaving. Of the more than 3,000 respondents to the Business Council, 36% of people pointed directly at housing. 28% blamed taxes and regulations for their BC woes. 23% expressed concerns about jobs and wages, while 18% pointed to a lack of public services.
You know what I'm surprised at this poll? It doesn't have your complete failure of a government NDP. That would be number one. It would just be huge, saying, you know what? They're not, all of these are symptoms of the main problem in the province.
When other jurisdictions like Alberta or Washington are rolling out the red carpet, we can't be rolling out the red tape.
Most of the respondents are not leaving, but for the first time in decades, more people are leaving BC for other places in Canada than arriving here. An annual outmigration of anywhere between 5,000 to 9,000 people a year.
We're losing the next generation of young people who would be innovators, entrepreneurs, workers, people building our province. We're losing people because they can no longer see a future here in British Columbia.
Most of the people moving from BC are heading to either Alberta or Ontario. 2/3 of them are under the age of 40. The BC government is acutely aware of the migration and is attempting to do what it can to keep people in this province.
I can't speak to the individual decisions of British Columbians, but what I can say is that we're focused as a government on making sure that we tackle those issues that are facing British Columbians are facing, including cost of living.
They're doing absolutely nothing. That's why it's accelerating. They're failing in all fronts.
Those people leaving are speaking so loud the province either needs to answer or expect the departures to ring even louder.
Oh yeah, it's just going to keep on going. You know, I on a daily basis say, why am I still in British Columbia? Every single day. I was born in Burnaby. I want to stay here, but it's just getting so bad in this province. It's almost time for me to leave. Here's the approval rating of all the premiers across Canada. Check out who is second to last place, as well as David Eby. They're both the worst. Is Ford and Eby are just like, yeah, nobody wants them. And then obviously Quebec, that's pretty low for Quebec. It looks like there's going to be a change there as well. Now, this is one of our top stories today. Is we just found out, this is some breaking news, that in the projects of national interest, there is zero pipeline as of right now. Canada has no pipelines. Brookfield, Carney's blind trust, just purchased America's biggest pipeline. Every time that Canada does not do a pipeline, his investments in the United States climb. Tell me how this is not the biggest conflict of interest in history. Here's the Brookfield purchase as Colano Pipeline, which closed in August last month for $9 billion. Here's the CBC report on the leaked information about the projects of national interest, and we're going to discuss this.
Rafi, let me ask you about what we're hearing from our colleagues at Radio-Canada. The government is preparing to announce its first national interest projects. Our colleagues at Radio-Canada have learned that there are no oil pipelines included on that list for now. Didn't make the short list. Can you explain the thinking behind that?
Yeah, it didn't make the short list. Can you provide us the thinking about that? Because for us Canadians to see that no oil pipeline has been included in the list, this is like boom. How are we going to become the strongest and fastest growing economy in the G7 and an energy superpower without pipeline?
Yeah, interesting timing as they gather here in Alberta, right? But evidently there is no proponent for the project. So Liberal sources told Radio-Canada, well, if nobody's sticking their hand up to build the thing, we can't approve it right now.
See? This is the biggest scandal in Canadian history. There's no proponent for this pipeline because there's no company in the world that would invest in Canada with the Liberal government in charge. They are anti-energy. They have all of these restrictions, Bill C-69 and the oil tank ban. And their emissions cap. No one is going to invest in Canada, even with Bill C-5, until all those regulations are removed. Because why would they? They could just go down to the United States and invest there where they don't have all these ridiculous restrictions. And we also have the industrial carbon tax and pricing. This is insane.
Insisting, though, that this is, temporary. An oil pipeline could make its way onto the list in the future. So could a gas pipeline, for instance. No doubt Carney will be having words with Alberta Premier Danielle Smith about this decision. They're set to meet later this evening. Smith, of course, is a huge proponent of pipelines. She's been asking the Liberals to get rid of Bill C-69, which is their environmental impact assessment legislation, which she says nixes the chances of any pipeline ever being built. The two leaders will meet at 5:30 Mountain Time this evening. They don't have any public availability scheduled after that meeting, so it will be at least one sleep until we hear from how that meeting
I'm going to report on this tomorrow when we hear from that meeting.
Went down and what they spoke about.
Why does nobody around the world want to invest in Canada's energy industry? Right here, it's because, and you can see in the highlighted areas, it's because Canada has been involved in a hostile location to do business. Right here, this hostile attitude could cause long-term damage to Canada's economy. And again, energy hostility will also put the mining, timber, and other extraction industries on notice. We are doing self-harm, Canada. No one wants to do business in Canada because of the Liberal government. When are Canadians going to wake up? When we're all living in tents across Canada? And like if you saw my video yesterday, eating moss with the freaking squirrels? Libertarian on X posted this, and I agree with this statement. And this is probably going to be Mark Carney's plan. Here's what the Libs are going to do today. Vaguely promised with Smith and Alberta that they're going to consider revising the pipeline and tanker ban across Canada. Alberta's left wing will all vote to remain in Canada, after which Carney will slam the door on all oil and gas developments. Who agrees with this? Because I believe he's going to do something in order to wave that carrot and say, yeah, we're going to do something just to make you happy, Alberta. And as soon as this whole thing goes away, he's going to slam the door on everything. So Mark Carney refused to table a budget. Then after public backlash, which was massive, he's like, okay, fine, I'll promise one in the fall. Canadian youth unemployment has skyrocketed, and it's not just a Donald Trump thing. It's been going up for 3 straight years. Now it's in some provinces, it's at like 20, 21%. Overall across Canada, it's 14.5%. The working class is suffocating under extreme taxes. We're getting taxed. That is our biggest expense in Canada, is taxes. This fall budget won't save the Liberals. It's gonna bury them. Let's take a look at this news release.
So I want to actually speak to something Kathleen said about, comparing the cuts that Carney's proposing versus the Harper era cuts. The difference is there's so much more to cut. The broader public service increased 40% since 2015. At the CRA, we have 60,000 employees versus the IRS that has 80,000 employees, and they have 9 times our population. I don't think we have 9 times the service level. I don't think we have 40% better service from our public service than we did in 2015. So there appears to be a lot of fat to trim. What I want to also bring up is to Dan's point that this Prime Minister is going to be so much different in how he approaches finances. We had to peer pressure him into doing a fall budget. He wasn't going to do one. And somebody who doesn't understand the importance of transparency and telling the electorate what you're going to do, how much you're going to spend, where you're going to make the investments, I have very little confidence that he's going to actually read the room here. He wants to talk about big projects and big programs and, the national interest stuff, and it's all been great on paper. We haven't seen anything happen in real life. And I think if you look at the youth, for example, that Pierre Poilievre is speaking to, they don't want another program. They just want the opportunity to get a job and buy a house and live their Canadian dream. I think that Mark Carney doesn't understand that. And so I'm really interested to see what's in this budget, and I'm really interested to see how he's going to communicate it to people who are feeling real hurt right now and who feel left behind by sort of the thinking process of this Liberal government.
You know what's sad is I think he does understand. He's quite bright and he doesn't actually care. That's the thing. They're going to spin things and make it just seem so great, but do something else. Mark Carney has never struggled in his entire life. He probably buys $18 strawberries and he doesn't care because he doesn't even have to pay for his own grocery bill. He's never had to. It's always been expensed. So he can't actually put himself in the real struggle of Canadian citizens on a day-to-day basis. He's going to say, hey, let's offer them programs. Let's cut taxes. But when they cut taxes at 76 cents per day, it's so insulting to us Canadians that are actually living through this nightmare that they've created for us. For this economic genius, the Bank of Canada, Bank of England, he's got all this experience. For him not to come out with a budget immediately is very concerning for Canadians because we want transparency from the Liberal government. The only reason he's providing us a budget is because we had public backlash saying, you have to provide us a budget. You're part of the government. We need to see what you're up to. The thing is, he's never been transparent since the moment he showed up into our lives. He has a most conflicted prime minister in Canadian history with his 103 conflicts of interest. And it looks like every single project of national interest is in fact benefiting his conflict of interest companies. This is insane, Canada. What's it going to take for a mass awakening event? We need change. We need an election today. Get these Liberals out. What's unbelievable, it's been 6 months. We have zero budget. I know we're going to get one in the fall, and it's going to be catastrophic. I guarantee you the debt bill, we're probably going to see $100 billion in deficit spending when he's promised cuts and austerity. And now we find out there's going to be no pipeline, a project of national interest. The Liberals are meeting this week because next week, which is 5 days away, they're going to be in the House of Commons. So they're coming up and cooking up a plan of lies to sell us after torching whatever is left of the confidence we had in them. Well, I didn't have any confidence in them, but the general population is losing confidence and they're losing it fast. This government is making Justin Trudeau look like a genius.
With the move on the carbon tax, the move on the EV mandate, this review of climate policy that they're doing on a competitiveness scale. I mean, what sort of challenges does this potentially create internally for the government, never mind the external ones?
I believe that once Mr. Carney lays out the true facts of what we're facing as a nation with the difficulties with the United States, that even the most hardcore environmentalist is going to understand and realize that there are going to have to be concessions made all over the place in order to make sure that we have an economy at the other end of this conflict that we're having. When I listen to them now, David, what I take away from it is, oh my gosh, how much trouble are we really in? Because it's beginning to sound pretty problematic in terms of what we're facing vis-a-vis the United States. The stakes are indeed very high, and the pain may be coming that we're not anticipating. And I think that perhaps what the Prime Minister will have to do at this caucus meeting is just to lay it out all to bear and go from there. And as Cameron said, have a united caucus going in. If I could just say one thing about Pierre Poilievre and what he said, the reason why Pierre is able to say these things is because Mr. Carney took the position and made the decision to not introduce a budget back in June. So there's a vacuum. And as a result, Pierre gets to come out and talk about all these things, and they will be in the position where the government has to respond as opposed to lead.
It's because the Liberals have been disastrous from day one. They've been a disaster for the last decade. And then Canadians voted them in again, thinking they got a brand new shiny government. And people are realizing that this brand new Liberal government is in fact worse than the government we had before. This is catastrophic, Canada. We don't have a budget. Now we have no pipeline. We have no deal with the United States. We're going into the fall when we find out the numbers that is actually inside this budget. Canada is going to wake up in the masses and go, uh-oh, we're in massive trouble. And the Liberals have zero solutions for us. Thank goodness we have Pierre Poilievre. Because if we had nothing on the other side, this country would be literally cooked. Oh, I got more for you, Canada. CBC Watchers on X says the negative impacts of Canada's proposed oil and gas emissions cap will be much larger than previously projected, warns a study by the Center of North American Prosperity and Security. The report concludes that the cost of emissions cap far exceeds any benefit from emission reductions within Canada. It could push global emissions higher instead of lower. This is a professional report based on the findings this March by the Office of the Parliamentary Budget Officer. SNAPS pegs the cost of the cap to be close to $289,000 per ton of reduced emissions. That's more than 3,600 times the cost of the $80 per ton federal carbon tax eliminated this spring. Emission cap will end Canada's energy superpower dream. Study finds legislation's massive cost outweighs any environmental benefit. Just so people are aware, this emissions cap is literally going to turn us into a third world country. And when we become a third world country, we're going to start burning our household trash in order to stay warm, resulting in the worst pollution and CO2 emissions Canada has ever seen. We need to rapidly move away from this insanity. I'm getting heated today because when I found out there's no oil pipeline on the list of projects of national interest, we are in big trouble in Canada. Canada's broke. Our allies want our energy, and Ottawa thinks windmills are going to be able to pay the bills. Here's the brand new report that just came out that outlined no pipelines in Canada. This is just a reminder, we need more pipelines. We also need refining capacity. Look at the prices of gas in the Lower Mainland today, $1.90.9. This is no joke, Canada. We're going to surpass $2 per liter in the Lower Mainland in no time, okay? And we're going to continue to see higher fuel prices. And it's because Mark Carney is moving forwards with their biofuel to make gas less carbon emissions, which is adding 17 cents to the price of fuel. And they're going to continue to increase the price of fuel so that we can't afford to buy it anymore. And then we're forced to buy these EVs. Maybe they'll move away from their EV mandate, but we won't be able to afford to drive gasoline vehicles. Now the fun part, Canada. Our Canadian police forces want us to comply if someone is intruding in your home.
In the unlikely event that you find yourself the victim of a home invasion, we are urging citizens not to take matters into their own hands. While we don't want homeowners to feel powerless, we urge you to call 911 and do everything.
Okay, we're going to call 911. You're going to take 15 to 30 minutes to show up. And by that time, our house is ransacked. And if we're in trouble, well, we're kind of done. Better not fight back. Well, we just found some new news from the new Prime Minister of Trinidad has come out with this announcement. Check this out.
We will give you stand your ground laws, home invasion laws, and legal firearms. And when the brutal rapists and criminals come into your homes, I tell you again, load up your matic, light them up, empty the clip. And when you're done, knock it on them, knock it again, and then call my name. I am Kamala. Do not fear. Kamala is here.
Wow. This reminds me of Scarface, but I have to say, what do you think, Canada? There are many places around the world that have had enough. They just said, that's it. We need to start defending ourselves. What will it take for Canada to demand change? That's it for today's report. Man, things are really escalating in Europe, and I hope they start calming down because Mark Carney's talking about boots in the ground, sending all this money. I mean, this is almost poking the bear. We don't want to be part of this conflict. We don't want to send our children to this war. We have so many problems here at home with our economy, with our negotiations with Trump, with trying to get to net zero when we can't afford to do anything. Our hospital systems, the crime rate, you name it. We have the problems here in Canada and we need change. But with this liberal government, it's the same old liberal government with the same old things. Just wait. They're going to have this caucus meeting for the next few days. We're back in the House of Commons. It's going to be a whole ton of fireworks guaranteed. And hopefully it's time that Canadians wake up. We need to change direction. We can't keep going down this road. I look forward to providing all of you these reports. Hopefully I'll have an update from Alberta because we're having that meeting at 5:30 today. Tomorrow we should get some information on it. I will definitely make a video on that. I will see you on the next report.